To move this amendment on behalf of Green Party NI, and I thank the proposer for supporting the amendment. The scale of illegal dumping in Northern Ireland it's unfathomable how such a level of criminality has been allowed to continue for so long. In 2004, the UK Environmental Law Association branded Northern Ireland the dirty corner of the UK and called for us to establish an independent environmental protection agency. Is there something about Northern Ireland that makes us particularly criminal, that makes us particularly bad? I don't think there's something inherent. Yes, we certainly have a high level of organised crime, and the Mills report points to organised crime as being the cause of this criminality, and I don't think there's any other way you could describe criminality at this level. But I believe that systematic failures and institutional neglect have facilitated waste crime in Northern Ireland. A lack of enforcement has left a hole for illegal dumping to fill. Waste crime has not been given the attention it deserves and has not been taken seriously. The department, I feel, has failed in its duties to enforce environmental and planning regulations, and indeed the judiciary has failed to give sufficient fine and disincentive when charges have been brought and convictions have been brought to those involved in waste crime. The proceeds of waste crime are astronomical. We need fines that act as a genuine deterrent and indeed sentences. We need to send out a message that crime doesn't pay by ensuring that the polluter does pay. We have to take this seriously because the financial, social and environmental costs are serious. The Mills report highlights the 516,000 tonnes of illegal waste dumped, or of waste dumped illegally at Mowboy. Points to the 34.6 million minimum in lost tax revenue, and it's worth pointing out that that's at the Mowboy site alone. He identifies a total of 26 illegal sites across Northern Ireland, and that's one of the reasons why, through the amendment, I've sought to extend this motion beyond just the northwest, where, of course, there is a particular problem, but this is a problem that spreads across Northern Ireland. Mills estimates that it will cost the taxpayer $250 million. He estimates it costs $250 million to clean up the problem of illegal waste dumping in Northern Ireland. Add to this and the lost tax the cost of investigation, and indeed, should it come to it, the cost of possible EU infractions. The question is, can we recoup these costs? Will this happen? I certainly hope that the department and along with other agencies will ensure, if that's possible, that it's done. But our record in the past hasn't been good, and if we look at the situation of the Cavanagh gold mine, the public ultimately paid the price for unregulated mining. Prevention, though, is better than cure, so we do need to look at what failures led us to this situation. The fact is that illegal dumping at the scale took place at Mowboy could not have occurred had the department stopped unauthorised mineral extraction. One of the best terms I read, I came across it in the Mills report, was this idea of the department DOE planning's positive enforcement. The idea was that they wouldn't enforce their own regulations if it was felt that there would be a detrimental impact on the economy. And I can't help but thinking that the $250 million clean-up cost will have a detrimental impact on our economy, particularly if it has to be paid from the public purse, as unfortunately it may be the case. And it seems a very political decision for an enforcement agency to be deciding that it will not enforce its own regulations due to economic considerations. I think the policy of positive enforcement that showed DOE planning have positively failed to enforce the regulations that cover planning. I think as well that political decision-making reinforces the calls for the need for an independent environmental protection agency. I think the failure to enforce planning has been further highlighted. I raised a question with the Minister as to how many of the sites at Moboy which didn't have planning permission had discharge consents. Six unauthorised landfill sites, quarrying sites, had discharge consents. And you have to wonder why these operators felt that they could operate without planning permission but couldn't operate without discharge consents. That sounds to me like in one case, when it comes to discharge, the department is enforcing regulations, but when it comes to planning, there's been a lax attitude taken. We've had a culture of retrospective regulation of unauthorised sites, and planning has been taken very lightly by those in the minerals extraction industry. The EIA directive requires an environmental statement before any quarrying can take place. Yet again, unauthorised quarries have been allowed to continue to operate without any sanction from the planning department and without any environmental statement. Why has the department not been enforcing the EIA directive? This is, in my view, a systematic failure, institutional neglect which has facilitated illegal dumping in Northern Ireland. As well as the financial costs of the illegal dumping that's taken place, there are social and environmental costs. Again, if we look at the Moboy case, the western edge of the site, the dumping site, stretches for 1.4 kilometres along the River Fawn, a special area of conservation. The 1 kilometre downstream of the site is where 2/3 of Derry's drinking water comes from. So it's clear that this is it's important that we ensure that we keep these waterways clean, both for the protection of people's health in terms of safe and clean drinking water, but also, as I say, the site is borders an area of special area of conservation with internationally important populations of Atlantic salmon and river otters. And indeed, the department again has shown poor performance with regards of protection of special areas of conservation, with 33 out of 54 designated sites in unfavourable condition. I think it's clear that we need a public inquiry across Northern Ireland to look at these issues, not just one site, and indeed not just the North West, although again I acknowledge the scale and the importance of looking at the illegal dumping in that area. But Mills has identified 26 sites across Northern Ireland, and this might not be an exhaustive list. We must look not just at the illegal dumping, but the failures of governance which have facilitated the criminality. We must, and a question I would ask for the Minister, this obviously is an issue that will take some time. Will the problems of unauthorised quarrying be passed on with planning to local councils? Because I believe this is a legacy that local councils will not want to inherit. We need a review of mineral permissions as required by the Habitats regulations, and we need to end the culture of retrospective regulation of planning applications in relation to mineral extraction. Back when the Northern Ireland Environment Agency was established, Arlene Foster said, "I and my party take the issue of environmental governance too seriously to externalise the organisation." I think now, given that we have seen the failures of environmental governance in Northern Ireland, I and the Green Party take environmental governance too seriously to leave enforcement in the hands of those whose idea of positive enforcement is to positively ignore enforcement regulations. I think we need an independent environmental planning agency, and I believe that a public inquiry into these issues would draw that conclusion. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
I call Pam Cameron.